Hello, YouTubers. This is another session where I'm joined by my brother Josh McCall here so we can continue our journey to build a decentralized open source social media platform called Taarafu. In the last session, we walked a little bit quickly through putting up a dialog and test driving, having that dialog just pop on the screen. Maybe we added a button in there, but today we're going to continue this little journey and, basically adding a functionality, hooking up an actual functionality into that button and making sure that the dialogue actually is performing as expected. So Josh, we talked a little bit about being able to pop up the dialogue, a button will show up. Let me run the application here just to give people a little bit, because you skipped last week, right? Is that what you did? No,
Yeah,
Josh is
yeah, it's actually been 2 weeks and stuff. So it's we
oh,
did
why
get a
why
little
did
bit
we
on the
skip the week before?
something about crying babies and just lack of sleep, and I could have showed up. I just don't know if anyone would want to watch that because I was a little tired. I was
No
I
worry, no
it's hard
worries.
enough to program C sharp when you have
When you're
sleep and
tired, your
stuff,
code
but
is going to be tired. We don't want tired code. I can tell you that for sure.
it could be better. We should try it sometime.
So anyways, so we had this dialogue in place, and this is we basically were able to say, okay, we need to test drive that every single component on this dialogue is showing. So this is a new post, and here's a button that says post, and if you click the button, it does nothing. And today we're gonna make the button do stuff, right? We're gonna have it do some stuff. But before we do that, I think we need to be able to add a text box inside this dialog, and we need to test drive that this dialog will have a text box within it. So let's go there. Let me share Visual Studio here. Was it my turn or your turn last time? Let's see.
It's obviously your turn, obviously.
It's definitely that's a given, right? That's outside the box. I think it's your turn because I remember me demoing that. But oh, if it was me demoing last time, then it's definitely my turn. Yeah, it is my turn because it says pass. And before I forget, let me increase the screen here to 150%. Please do the same, Joshua, so people can see what the heck we're doing here. Okay? Do you think you can do that? No?
Yeah, already there.
All right. Yeah, you're ready. You don't need you didn't anyone to tell you, right? So okay. So last time we said okay, fail, pass, fail, pass, fail, pass, and then you'll see Josh, Hassan, Hassan, Josh, Josh, Hassan, as we expect it to work. That's what normal software engineering is supposed to look like, right, Josh? That's
Of
the
course.
the norm. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is that I'm gonna add a text box. I'm gonna, make it a part of my test that a text box is supposed to be within that dialog. So let's just first take a look at that base dialog component that we have here. So these are our views, models, views, bases, and then post dialogs. Okay, so this is the dialog base. And the dialog base, I bet it supports having something like this within it. And I bet you that this dialog base has a rendered fragment within it, like a child, and it tells us what to do. So let's see, this is the dialog base, and it has dialog button, and it has content. And I bet that content is a render fragment. So explain to people, Josh, what is this render fragment exactly? What is this supposed to be doing, exactly? Mhm.
Yeah, I think last time we started off as kind of like a translation between different frameworks and stuff. And if you come from the React world, this is kind of like your it's kind of like your child content and stuff. So anything that you're going to pass down and just kind of nest a component with inside of a component, that's in React terms called a child. In Blazor, we're going to call this a the content that goes into your component, and it comes down as a render fragment. So if you think of like your component as something that's going to be rendered, then any partial component or anything that you can pass down as a component or as a partial piece is called a render fragment. So we can actually pass a component kind of almost a dependency injection into another component, and it renders on the screen.
Nice. So I can have a component that takes components as input parameters.
Yep.
Like a component that takes interesting, which brings this idea, like, how I say always there's a try nature for everything. Everything can take, three things. You as an individual, there are people that depend on you, you depend on people, but you also have your own purpose, your own function in life. Um, I feel like I can apply the same theory to components, that any component can take either values or other components or events. Is there anything else that a component can take? I think these are the three categories. Go ahead.
You're putting me on the spot here and stuff, so I'd have to think about it and stuff. But no, I was gonna mention, by default, Blazor has the capability to pass in a content in like, it just knows that a content can be passed into it. So then you have to decide whether you want to use that content or not. But if you kind of use that pattern, what to make it a little more concrete, say
Mm,
that we have this dialogue that pops up. If we want to have the header, the footer, and the content be completely different things, and we just wanted to, like, assemble the pizza as it comes in, we can actually just have the ingredients, I suppose. You'd have the different components or the different render fragments being passed in. So we have this base component, and if we wanted to customize this, we could pass in a custom header, which would be a render fragment, a
mhm.
custom footer that would be a render fragment, and then the content itself that goes into the component. So this allows you really just to pick and choose and kind of assemble the individual little slices to really customize your components. But
Can
yeah,
you
so it's like, what's that?
can you think of anything, like, let me I really want to press on this one because it's part of, like, standardizing this will help people have, hopefully. I noticed that when I was younger, when I was in school, I didn't understand why people categorized things. What's the point of it? And then I realized if you categorize things, you can easily think about the responsibility and where they fit if you can just get the categorization. So any component in Blazor, for any component in Blazor, this component can either take one of three input parameters, types of parameters like categories. It's either going to be just a normal value, like a property that you're passing in, a string, whatever, right? State, whatever you want to pass, or you're passing a component to a component, right, Josh? Or you are passing an event, like these actions or delegates or functions, or is there anything else that can go into a component?
I don't think so. I mean, I mean, we can talk about the different types of values. So you have the context, that comes from like inherited, come down from multiple components. That also just is another way of saying values. We have the params that come down directly, but then we have if you pass down an actual component or render fragment that fits into the component area. Otherwise, it's all going to be events or how to handle an event and stuff, or a service that you're going to use, which is all around events and stuff. So is there another thing that you can think of, or is this kind of
I
cover
can't.
the scenario?
It's by the way, just so you understand, I didn't just come up with this. I thought about this a while, and this is why I'm asking you. Just for the guys watching us, Josh is technically my mentor when it comes to high level UI principles and design architecture. My job is, I like Blazor, but he likes UI as a concept, and then we're mushing our skill sets together so you get that kind of experience. Like, for the people watching, unlike so many of the other series and the other um on the other sessions where I actually just telling people things, this guy actually is my teacher. He shows me certain concepts and ideas, and I'm formulating my standard according to his feedback. So I couldn't think of anything other than that. When I try to author the standard and write, these days I'm writing a book about Blazor. I'd love for you to kind of put some input in there sometimes, but you know, you're either passing a property at the property level, or you're passing another component, or you're passing a delegate. I couldn't think of anything else. And if that's that, then, I think it'll make things a lot easier for us to kind of understand how components operate.
Yeah, just one last thought. I think that by categorizing it like this and stuff, oftentimes we learn about the component by itself, and we're all of a sudden stuck into, like, you have to pass down your data as parameters. But if you can kind of separate those things out, you can say, well, I have my rendering logic inside my component, but I just need my data. Well, my data can come as the parameters that we normally pass in, just if you read the docs. Or what if we pass it down as context? Or what if we pass it, let the component actually make the call and everything. So you can, by separating it out and having that, like, generalization to those three different categories. It allows you to focus on one of those categories at a time, and then be able to kind of look at how to solve that problem differently and stuff. So I really do like and then you have to put it into a tangible thing, because a lot of times you'll look at the docs and stuff, and I'm like, I don't understand how I would use this and stuff. But if you look at it and say, where have I used this and seen this pattern before? What are other people doing and stuff? Then you can say, oh, well, there's multiple ways you can get data into a component. Well, was there multiple ways I can render the component? Maybe I can have something else render the component. If I have the data calls in this component and then I go let something else assemble the component in the view, well, that kind of looks like a higher order component from React. So we have like a stateful component and then a not so stateful component, and lo and behold, you have that implemented with your base components and your normal what we have our normal components and stuff. So our base component is handling the low level things, the things either we're using the component library or just the HTML CSS that we know that's going to be consistent. What's going to be different about the dialogues is going to be the actual content that goes in the dialogue, which service it's going to call, but it's going to always use that base dialogue. So we can look and mix and match those things and stuff. So if you were to translate back and forth between the React things, React kind of paradigm, we have those three different categories and stuff. But we have our stateful component and then our presentational component, or we would call that a higher order component. And then we're just about ready to put in our calls to actually be the rendering logic for our individual component. And you can do that by inside of its component, or let a different component handle it and stuff.
Let something else. Yeah. And then there's also, Joshua, also on the topic of the tri-nature of everything, have you noticed every class either have a constructor or exposes a property or exposes a method? So it's something you have, something you do, or something within you. So again, back to the same thing. And maybe I'm crazy. Do you know that movie of is it Jim Carrey, where he thinks everything is 66 steps towards something or other? I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but I think I'm stuck in that realm myself, but we'll see. So imagine this, like on the outside, you have these values. These are the possible input parameters, but you also you could have a constructor, or you have a property that you're exposing within your component, or you have a method that you're exposing within your component, right?
So what kind of combinations do you use for those and stuff? Because I've noticed that you like to use a certain pattern on interacting with your components, and then everybody has a kind of different perspective and stuff. But would you ever have a constructor, a property, and a method that you're going to set on one component, or do you have to pick and choose? Like if I use a constructor, I'm either going to be constructor based and it's going to know how to do things, or it's going to be property based and something else is going to set those things, or it's going to be method based and we're going to trigger those actions. Like, would you all do all three at the same time?
This is why I love talking to you, man. You just, as you talk, you just pop things in my head. So it seems to me that there are three types of components. There are components that are just exposers. They're like a page. You just pluck the components within them, and that's it. They don't do much. It's like a controller in an API. It's just an exposure. And it seems like there are controllers that do the integration with the data layer with the services. And it seems to me that there are a third type of components that are base components. And these base components, they can't have a data layer access in their constructors, right? And they can't have they're just a shell component that is moldable, if that's a word. It's moldable based on a component that holds the logic in it, or the UI logic in it. So I like, for the category of the base components, these base components didn't do a lot of smarts. You just feed it things and it shapes itself up based on the configuration that you pass to it. I was talking to someone yesterday about this, and they said something to the effect of, men and women are pretty much the same. It's just different configuration. What do you think about that, Josh?
It hurts my brain because I'm trying to think of Blazor components, but yeah, I think I got where you're going and stuff. I was just writing down a note and stuff. When you say moldable, I think that like the functional world would talk about composable and everything. And I guess the reason I ask about those three different layers is that like you said, to put it a little more concrete, how you'd use this in a web app and stuff. So a constructor app or a constructor component would be like your page level. So you're going to have your dependency injection, you're going to have your services, you know how to go out and make your call. And that's a one interesting thing about like the Blazor compared to React. React is all going to be API based and is going to be bound to those API contracts and stuff. And you can definitely do that in Blazor, but because of the WebSocket component of Blazor, you can also just say, I'm going to inject this service that and kind of skip that layer. And so you have this constructor that does dependency injection, gets you service ready to go. So that's your page level area. Then we have things on the page that maybe we want to, like the page level is smart enough to know how to handle certain situations by itself. The middle layer says, okay, when they do this action, we need to trigger something. So like the dialog that we're developing now, maybe that's property based. So when we say like whether you show that dialog or not, we're going to say that dialog should be visible. And so we can either do that by some kind of event or whatnot and stuff, or what I've seen you like to do is like, and it kind of gives me flashbacks to like some of the ASP pages or whatever and stuff where you have it in memory and then you say dialog dot is visible
Yep.
set to true and then tell it to render. So we're going to basically make a customized dialog, but then we're going to programmatically or procedurally kind of interact with it because we want to do a very defined set of states. And then the next layer, which is kind of the base layer, it says we're going to put a content a text box in that dialog. And sometimes we need to do validations, we need to make sure that it's filled out, whatever and stuff. So that's going to be all your method based things. So as you type and everything and stuff, well, you get to exit, so unblur, or when you leave that input, it's going to trigger that method and it's going to populate up. So what I've kind of seen as this this convention or this pattern is that you either have a component. It doesn't mean that you can't mix some of these three together, but usually for having separation of concern, you have one component that's largely concerned with constructor, making data calls, kind of orchestrating everything on the UI. You have another component that might be a somewhat smart thing, but the constructor component is kind of interacting
Doing
with
the
that
data.
property.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you have these components that you're kind of molding or kind of composing that you're just kind of like picking and choosing. Well, if they select this option, I'm going to display this. If I select that option, I'm going to display this. I'm going to feed it the data. And those are mostly reaction based or event based things that we're going to specify our method. So I hope that kind of rant kind of like kind of helps clarify, but like how we would use these. But I think that that's the tri nature of these components, and it's a lot to throw at people. Like, oh, I've got all these things to worry about. But especially if you think of, okay, what is this component's primarily responsibility? Then you're getting really weird if all of a sudden you're like, well, I have this constructor, but this other component's calling like methods on my constructor. Maybe I should separate those out and stuff. And so that's kind of the three layers, but.
But this is is not fair. There's still more to it. There's a little bit more to it. This is not exactly tri nature because we mentioned two high level. These are categories or anatomy of the options within the system. But there is another layer in here. Can you think of it? Check this out. Every component. So that's the input of the component, right, Josh? You can pass a value, component, or an event, right? But there's also something else more to this. And I know it's funny, but just indulge me, man. I know
I
I
think your
don't know.
neighbors have a party going on. Do you have some
No,
thumping music?
no, it's the calling of the prayer in the back.
Oh, okay.
I was
It's a
supposed to
party.
I was supposed to fix the time because of the daytime saving. And I left the
Yep.
watch here, and when it's the time for the prayer, it just calls off. I'm sorry, Josh.
Your
So
watch is calling you out.
it's like this one of those very special watches where it has all the prayer times like showing up in it. Did I show you that one before? It's really weird. It's very
I don't
interesting.
think so.
I never showed you that before. Hang tight. Hold on. So So this watch,
Oh
it
yeah,
basically,
I've,
do you remember? It shows you like every
yeah.
prayer time in here. It's so amazing, and it just have all the times and everything. It's pretty cool. Anyway,
My
so
grandma has one of those, but it does like bird calls. So I thought it was just a bird call clock, whatever. But anyway, programming, faith, birds, whatever. Let's get back to it.
yep, you never know what Josh has said. So here's the thing, but what is the third option? So this is the internal of the
Mhm.
component, right? And this is the input of the component. What about the output? Look at this, Josh. It's either markup or styles or back end or front end code. Isn't that what every component exposes?
Yeah. So you're either providing
Josh,
more
am I crazy?
functionality.
Am I too fixated on this try things?
No,
I feel like I'm losing my mind because it just makes sense. It just makes sense.
and I think it'll make more sense as we go through. And I think it's good that we're breaking this down. And I really like the fact that we break this down, because one of the reasons, what as we talk about the standard, and and why we go so nuts about our test driven nature, is because when we found that if we try and put everything together, it all of a sudden complicates the code. We start getting some weird issues. But if we separate these things out and actually put some thought into it, it allows you to think about it differently and stuff. So when we say markup, you're just talking about like what gets like if you show a chat list, you're
What do
going
you
to
see
say.
out of your components? Either markup or styles or code. That's the anatomy of your component, right? But inside the component itself, like inside that BFF, right? Back end of front end for people that, are also
Best friends
Josh's best
forever.
friends forever. That's Josh. So your component itself, like as code, is either having a constructor or a property or a method, but your component also can also take either a value or another component or an event. How crazy is that? It makes sense. It just makes sense, right? And then if I go and tell you every component either is a host component like a page, or intelligent component like a component, or just a moldable configurable dependency component like a base component, I don't know where this is coming from.
So
It just works.
I'm thinking of how about this hard, because this is how Hassan and I go back and we try and like prove each other wrong, and then we end up like I agree with you and stuff. So okay, so a concrete scenario of this and stuff is that when like what's the library? I'm blanking on the name that
No, Sync
you did.
Fusion.
Like, no. The
Mm.
one that you wrote, the pretty Blazor,
Oh,
not
Pretty
so
Blazor.
like yeah, so if we look at the component, like say if you had a chat conversation, you're going to print out a markup of a chat. Well, that's going to be your markup component. If you want to loop over those things, or do that kind of that what gets displayed, either your branching logic or your looping over all the chats, does that count as your backend for front end
Mm-hmm.
component? So you would kind
Mm-hmm.
of feed your like, hey, I want this is what the markup component you're going to
Mm-hmm.
pass in, but I'm going to pass it into a component that knows how to do this looping kind of nature and stuff.
Yep.
So, and then your styles is your blue versus your green bubbles, if you're going to do speech bubbles or whatever and stuff. So if we look at this, we have components themselves either have values, other components or events that are being passed in. The component kind of domain or its concern. So when you do separation concern, it's either going to be the constructor to be the smarts of the on the page. It's going to be able to interact with other property or base components, or itself is a property based component, or it's kind of like we call it a dumber method or a presentational component that has events that will trigger once you interact with it. And then to go one level deeper, is the component is probably going to be primarily concerned with either displaying a singular thing, doing like for the markup, how you want it to be displayed. The styles might change based on certain situations. So like in this situation, I'm going to display a blue style versus this one, I'm going to have a green. So that way you're removing your styles out of your markup component and you're kind of abstracting that, but you still get to be able to have a dedicated component for that. Or you have like your branching or your looping logic to kind of like to split things out on the page and stuff. So now I'm seeing like 9 different categories or whatever and
Yep.
stuff. And so
It's a
this makes
matrix.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So well, yeah, you can look at it as a matrix and stuff. So what's the benefit of having splitting all this out? Who does this help?
So it's just so first of all, this is just how my brain works, because I'm dumb. I try to simplify things. So if you have like 50 things in front of me, the first thing my brain will do is to find the similarities and gather them in groups. So I know how to understand them. That's just how my brain works, right? Some people be like, nope, I can handle 50 different categories of things at once. Nope, I'm fixated on 3 different categories for everything in the universe. Just how my brain works. I was literally trying to explain the solar system to someone the other day, and I said, okay, you have planets, and you have moons, and you have suns. That's your solar system. Is there anything else in the solar system other than these 3 things? Can you think
I
of
am the
anything?
wrong person to ask.
Okay, even look at your at the atoms. The atoms are either electrons or protons or neutrons. And what's very interesting is that there is 2 gravitational forces and there's something in the middle. So you as an individual, you have your baby daughter, right? So she is your dependent. So she's pulling you in one direction, right? But you're being pushed from another direction, which is work. You're making a living, right? So work, you're dependent on work, you're pulling from work, but your daughter is pulling from you as a dependent. But in the core, there is you, like what makes Josh Josh. Anyway, I don't want to turn this into a TED talk. I'm just telling you, I am losing my mind slowly. Just so you know that. But this is basically, so you asked me the question, when I categorize things, I can easily start thinking about how to make things simple and easy for engineers. That's really all that's my love and passion, right? And you know, you know how you love music and guitars and all that. I don't know where they went. Did you throw them all away? What happened to you?
I rearrange everything all the time, so they're hiding. They're all
That's
over the
that's
place
actually
now.
a good thing because you're changing the environment, which means that you get to still be interested in where you work and all that. But the other thing is that you would love music. I love to break things down and make them simple, especially when it comes to system designs. And if we can categorize things like this, nobody ever will fall into the trap where they put styles where the markup is. Nobody will try to put the back end or front end code in the markup. Right? This is why I'm very strict on like unobtrusive code and really, really strict about that. Right? Why? Because in my head, that's the only way I can understand code. And it just so happens because, I am not that smart. If I can understand it, then a vast majority of people will be able to understand it. And then what about the constructor and property and method, the part that you just, talked about? It just defines the internal, like inside that BFF, these 3 things show up: a constructor or property or a method, right? But they also play another role into what you can get out of your, like the core function of your component. And then you have the types of inputs. So again, exposure inputs, uh, and then you have constructors properties, and then you have markup styles and BFFs. Sorry, markup style BFF, that's exposure. I went right to left again, Josh. That's a problem. And then you have value component events. That's your dependency. So you need those dependencies, these inputs, like brokers. Brokers give you data, right? And then you have your core functionality, and then you have the exposure through markup and styles and BFF. Why BFF is considered an exposure? Because your BFF is the one that's calling the data layer, the view service, and pulling the data from there. So it's exposing that data by running back end or front end code or logic internally. Am I crazy? Is this crazy?
No, no, it makes sense. And I was gonna make a poor joke about so Blazor allows you to put everything all in one file, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that's really cool that they allow you to because it's kind of the next evolution. But I think it's, instead of having, we have the choice to jam everything in the same file. We can put the markup, we can put our styling, we can put our code in the same file. But just because we can doesn't mean we have to all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And even
Mm-hmm.
if we put it in the same file, there's still kind of the separation of concerns or the different responsibilities. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's still good to think about, what is this component doing? How is it interacting with other components? And should we jam it all into a one file?
Mm-hmm.
And I just noticed. So we started off. We're going to make our text component. We're dragging that out and everything. We're kind of burying the lead. But I've also seen when I work with Hassan, because we have these diagrams or these matrix and stuff, it makes it really simple on, like, okay, we've mapped this out. I want
Hmm.
you, Johnny developer, to go make this component,
Yeah.
and I want you to focus on the input and the interactions, make sure it's tested, and it's going to fit this specific matrix or these different
Hmm.
events. So if we were to map out based on this matrix and stuff, this text component, is it going to be all of these properties? Are we going to focus on certain deals? What would be our user story to do our text component?
So for us, we want to pass in a component that's the dependency.
Yep.
And then look, I'm going to light up the areas that's going to happen by us just adding this text dependency, right? So we're going to pass in a component. So that's this guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the text, right? And it's going to allow us to have a property where we can know what this component that was passed in is, right? And then we're going to light up a markup piece and a BFF piece. Look, it's just building itself out. What the heck is going on here? So this is basically you being able to access that property and being able to test it. So that's your text. Imagine this. This is your text box base like this. I'll just say text box like this. And now you have a property, which is the text box. And now you're displaying it in the markup and running the code on the back end to make sure that you read that data. How crazy is that? It's
Yep.
pretty cool, right? So
Yeah,
let's go to that. Go
yeah, I
ahead.
was
Go
gonna
ahead.
let's do that. But so right before we go to
Uh,
actually do that. So that
uh,
diagram is what I would screenshot, and that's actually when we go to do our architecture or kind of a design deal and stuff. To me, this is our the PM or the designer gives you the as a user, I want to be able to enter text. That's great. And then we usually have a mock-up of what it might end up looking at. But how do we structure our code is usually up to the individual developer. So this conversation, this is where we would say, okay, Hassan, you went through and lit up these boxes. I would take a screenshot of this. This is my acceptance criteria. I know that
yep.
if I put too much inside of if I try and make my component too smart with the constructor, PR is going to get denied. If I'm
Yep.
putting a whole bunch of styles in the component, well, that's kind of weird too. So if I stick to these areas, it's kind of our common agreed team kind of contract. This is what the component should do. So this is our task. This is what we're going to do. Let's flip over and actually do it.
Let's go. So let me go to um let me go to the portal. The joke, guys, the joke that always runs is that I tell people, okay, you know this diagram off the top of your head, right? Because I never save them, and then I end up just writing them again. So people just take a screenshot from the teams. Do you remember this, Josh? I feel like, okay, let's just get to this guy before he deletes it. Okay, so I can go here and say then maybe, Josh, I don't know. I can go here and say, text area base. Stanislav apparently did the so this is text area. So that'll give us like a big, nice text area. But of course, the test here is that I'm gonna go here. I'm not gonna add it anywhere. So this guy is basically as good as null. It's like me putting not implemented exception in here because unless you actually hook that up to a markup and put in the component, every time you try to access this guy, I'll tell you that's null, right?
Yep.
So I'm just gonna update my test here a little bit. So I'm gonna go into the first test in here and say, well, in addition to the dialog, the text areas also should be null, but also at the same time, I want to go here and say text area should not be null, which is right under the dialog in here, text area. Text area should not be null anymore. So let me run those tests. One of them is going to pass and one of them is going to fail because it being in a null state, that's okay. It being not in a null state, that's not okay. And I think the guy actually added I think the guy added some sort of input parameters that we can use to kind of test that the text box has the right information on it before we actually run it. We'll take a look at that in a second. Let's go here. Sorry about the clock, Josh. This is the first time this happens. I don't know how to. So, okay, so this is that. So this is failing, and let's just make sure it's failing for the right reason. It's saying text area should not be null, but it was null. Like just because don't give your pair a failing test. There's good failing and bad failing, and that's a good failing, but there's also bad failings that can happen all the time. Okay, so here's a fail because when we click on the dialog, that guy should be rendered and displayed. Go for it, Joshua. You're it.
Yep.
Are you having
Let's go
Are
ahead.
you having fun? Are you
Of
having
course, yeah.
fun? Okay, I'm having fun too. Let's go.
Okay, you can see my screen. Okay, so
Yep.
now we'll go ahead and do a poll. I've already got the branch checked out. And so we'll go over here and say we'll run all the tests because searching is weird. We'll just make sure that my machine's working right. We only have the one failure.
Is it a good practice to run all the tests all the time when you pass commits back and forth? And why?
So I always do because I need, and a lot of times when someone makes a test and then they'll say they'll run it and then the one thing will show failure, then all of a sudden you pull it down and you're working on that and then you go to commit your PR or whatever and you find out like 1,000 tests fail and you're like, oh, what happened and stuff. Well, you don't catch that that you touched something that affected a whole bunch of things and stuff. So it's good to verify that I have one test failing. It's good to verify that like we have everything is set up the same and stuff. So and then it's good just to verify that your tests aren't taking too long to run and stuff. So
Absolutely. All right,
okay,
give
so
this guy. Why is it complaining that it can't see the text area?
yeah, that's what I was kind of wondering and stuff. So it says that the contain a definition, but we know it does.
Just do a build, Josh. Just do a build,
Okay.
out of curiosity. I think it's just a build thing. What's your shortcut for build, Joshua?
Control Shift B.
Okay. What about rebuild?
What's your shortcut for build?
Right click rebuild.
Oh, okay.
I
That's
keep
not a shortcut.
I keep telling people the more you use the mouse, the slower you get. You know, and I also learned this from you. Do you remember command line? Oh, don't go to the UI, stuff like that. So I guess it's just a bug. I guess it's just a. Are you running the preview? Yeah, I guess
Always.
it's not an error, but it's just buggy. Anyway, so what are you gonna do now?
We're going to go to definition or go to implementation. Okay, so here we have our code behind file. So we need to know the where's
No, you're in
the
the test. You want to go to the actual
yeah. Well, what did it do that for?
post dialogues all the way at the top.
Oh my goodness. Okay, post dialogues. So now we have this is our
new daddy brain. New daddy brain.
Yeah. Time zone. Okay, so we have text area base component. So we want to bring this over into our Razor page, and the way that we're going to make it to where we're going to pass it into the content, which just means we're going to be inside of our tags here and stuff. We're going to
zoom that guy in. Control Shift dot. Nope,
geez.
don't touch that guy. Control Shift dot. Period. Haha. Did you know that one?
I did not know that one.
Yeah.
I have eyes that work. I mean, so.
All right, let's go.
I have a brain that works though. It is ref, right?
Yes.
It's not. Is it at ref?
At ref, yes, that's right.
At ref. Okay, that's right. Okay, so then we also want to do at the.
You actually did double quotes.
I know. So this is a big debate. Do we double quotes or because it's always already referenced?
I can't believe that you did that. Well, you don't need the next at then. Then just remove the at.
So this should. Why is it still underlined? Is this
it'll go away in a sec.
It'll go away. Okay.
It's just being silly. Oh no, it's failing. Text area type is used. What? No, you don't need base. Just say text area.
Oh, because you named it as text area. Okay.
Usually I do this intentionally because yeah. And now your test should pass technically.
You do it intentionally just to see if I was paying attention and I wasn't paying attention. Is that what happened?
No,
how do you zoom back out so you can see the whole thing?
Oh, Control Shift, comma.
Oh.
Haha. How about that?
We'll run this test.
What did you do to run the test? Control
RT? R and then T. No.
RT.
Just T because that'll run the one test. Okay, so it says.
What's it say? Invalid operation, object of type, dialog. Let's see. Dialog base does not have property matching child content. I think you need to still say content. Like you need to spell it out.
Okay.
And I don't want that.
So that means we need to go change our base component, or
let's try just content first, Josh. Or is it content? Do we just say content? Yeah. Yep. And then move that guy inside. I think that's what it is. Control KD.
Yep.
Really? Yeah, there you go.
right?
That's
We
that's
did it on
good.
the
Yep.
second time.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And then we should be able to run that test again. Wonderful. Okay, so now it's working.
So the test is passing.
Yep.
Yay!
You
So
kind of
now
expected.
try to run it, Joshua. See what.
Okay, we did a lot. We just put a text on inside of our component.
Mhm.
Yay!
I don't see it. People don't see it.
Oh, you're not. Well, I'm typing out my enthusiasm. Let me share screen. Yay!
Dude, I don't see. Yeah, there it
You
is.
don't see.
Oh
Okay.
wow, look at that. Haha. Zoom out a little bit. Yeah, we're gonna need to kind of work on the width and length and all that, but yeah, we have a text box. Now, I wonder if we can now put in some properties. So the next test is that we want to verify that we passed in certain things to fill in the box. Maybe height 100% or something like that, Joshua. Let's go see the base component, what it says.
Okay. Let's go ahead and I'll share the editor.
And I know people watching us be like, "Oh, so that's it, all this theory that you guys talked about, and it's just a text box that's showing." I don't know how to explain to people like the relation. I do know, but it's just a little bit like deeper understanding of why we're doing these things this way. But let's just see what he put. So he has a placeholder value change. So he didn't put in there like length and width. So how do we put these things in there, Joshua? Like maybe just a parameter as a property that says height, something like that.
Right. And so the we do have is disabled. So the cheater method would be let's go ahead and copy and paste. I know you have all kinds of snippets and everything. So this is if we do height, we're not, obviously can't do bool, but and then so that should be what you want that to be a
So
string.
so what should the height be? Should it be a string? Let's make it a string, Joshua. Because it goes into the property as a string or the style or whatever you want to do, right? We don't care about the width at this point, right? It's already stretched out automatically, right?
So we just want to test that the height is working just right and stuff, right?
So where do you place this height? Because you're in a base component, so let's place it somewhere in the markup for this base component. So we don't write tests for base components, but so yeah, SF text box. So what is this SF text box is gonna take? Does it take like
So
styles or something?
did I miss it? It should be.
Hmm. Should we look
Well,
at their
it has CSS. We can look at the docs and stuff. I thought it did have height on it. It says input attributes. It has width but no height. That's weird.
That's
Do you have the doc pulled up?
funny. I can pull it up real quick. Oh, what is this input? What is input attributes? Oh, you could pass HTML attributes. But let's just take a look, Joshua. Let me go to let's see.
You want to share your screen so they can see what
Yes, sir. So Sync Fusion SF text box.
Yep.
Let's see. Oh, that's the other SF text box Blazor. So get started, text box component, sizing. Normal, let's see. Text box can be rendered in two different sizes. Normal, by default, the text box is rendered small. No, I want to do a little bit more than that.
Oh,
So how,
interesting. They're control it with the CSS class as opposed to. Now ours is a text area, so maybe it's because it's trying to grow instead of like you can specify the width, but it has
and
a
I
little
also,
trackable
and I
thing.
also want, and I also want to pass a parameter. Customize text box background, color, change the color, change floating label. Set read only, set disable, rounded corner, create text box component dynamically. No, there's another documentation that they put. Remember, they always put in the, is it API reference?
Well,
So
yeah,
let's
now you're getting into
see.
the nerdy things, but so it could be because we're SF text box as opposed to input. Is that why it's different? Because this is a
Yeah.
text box as opposed to an input. So an input might have a height and width on it, but the text box might not. It might be different.
Oh, there's a thing called input as well, other than the text box? Really? Oh, input mask. That's all I see.
Yeah, well, go ahead and click that guy and stuff. Is that the impact mask contain a input, or is it just the mask that goes into the input?
I don't think so. It's the text box still, Josh, but let me just show you. Text box getting started, multi-line. So that's
Ah,
your, so you go and say multi-line equal true, placeholder, Mr. whatever, but can I define like the height of the multi-line? They can define, see, they put a CSS class in there, right? Now the question is whether we can pass parameter into our CSS. Let's start this way. Can you pass in a style to it? I think you can. Let's go back to your screen. Just pass a
yeah.
style in there.
Okay. Oh, you went ahead and went back to my screen. You do fancy things. Okay. Okay, we have style. I was like, why can I not share? Okay, so and then our style, I think is if we look at the docs, it should be just a text thing, isn't it?
Do we do style or do we do HTML attributes and inside of it we pass the style? Hmm.
Okay. So
Let's do
then
that.
we would want to do
The double quotes, and then we can basically go and say, here is your style equals,
whoa.
and then
Well, it's if it's CSS, we want to do it as a yes. You're right. Never mind. Style equals, and then we're gonna do our. Is it because we're in double quotes? We
escape
have to do
slash
ah.
slash. Why? Double quotes still. I think it's the other way. Yeah, and then close it with anyway, just put 100, just put 200 px in there just so we can test it first. Hmm.
Okay.
And
So then
then why is this guy mad at us, Joshua? Why?
we could also do the put it the this is where I'm flipping back and forth between C sharp and JavaScript. Is this do our single quotes inside of it with our double quotes outside, and then it will be happy, or is it the
But
other way
why
around?
is it mad at the style though? HTML attributes. Oh, is the HTML attributes like a dictionary with key value
What
pairs?
now? It does say
It is. Look, dictionary. Look.
ooh.
That's why. That's okay. Just create a dictionary real quick. Let me see the quick and dirty way to do this. Let's see. HTML. Let's see. Sync view. I'm gonna switch back to my screen, Joshua.
Okay. Yeah, that
So
might have
let's see. Sync Fusion, Blazor, HTML attributes. Let's see. There gotta be something on the fly that we can do that makes it look HTML attributes. Yeah, see how they're passing it like this. I'll send you this in the chat. Here's the, what is it?
beautiful.
Comments. Yep. See how you guys, you work with people, someone is driving, you do research for them, just something like that on the fly. Let's go, my friend. It's in
Okay.
the StreamYard chat.
Yep. Okay. So
We're,
now
we're
we'll go
using
ahead.
StreamYard, by the way. If you want to make your own podcasts and fun sessions like these, definitely StreamYard. And they're doing one specifically for the style. That's perfect. Yeah, 250 px, and let's see where things go.
Oh, 250. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's go ahead
Let's
and
run
do
it.
that guy.
Yeah, hopefully that'll work, Joshua. We'll see. I'm taking away this screen because you're sharing one window at a time. Do you want to share the other
I'm working on it.
thing? Okay.
I need one of those. We need to get the. We need to go to the next level and get the stream decks.
Yes. Yes. I agree.
Okay, so now it went ahead and
Didn't
made it much
help.
smaller. No, it did because it's. In fact, we can go ahead and inspect this and stuff because I think
Oh
that would
wait,
have
it
been.
did increase. Oh, ho,
Yep,
ho.
yep, yep. So the elements here, if we go ahead and pull this back out, we're gonna see that the text area probably gets a style. Where's the
Wait, did you put the 250px on the dialog base or on the text area base?
the text area?
Oh, okay.
Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, yeah, it should go in the
Okay.
text area. So where's the
Okay, so if we
250?
look at this, it says that it is computed is going to be, well, that's kind of weird. Why is it,
I know why. Because in HTML, the text area, you have to define columns, the column size. Go
oh,
go read.
okay. So here it is. So the wrapper. So they put it there. There's a wrapper around the actual text area. So they say that the height is 250 pixels and so. And there's actually a typo here. So that could be a problem. So there we go. So and then if I want to go ahead and increase this, so if I made it
But
350.
wait. You're saying width height. This is wrong. Take away width.
The multiple typos here. This is why we pair.
Okay, so hold tight. Now, indulge me on this. So your attributes are going on a div, not the actual text area. Oh, that sucks. Because I want to go down there, like you see in that text area, if you type columns and type like 20, it will increase exactly the way we want it to. So you see that text area in the middle of the, yep, double click somewhere and put columns numbers in there. Look how they're generating a little GUID to kind of hide the, yep, columns equal 10 or 20 or whatever. 10, 20, fine. Let's go. Didn't help?
Oh.
Oh, it's calls, not columns. Sorry, forgot. COLS. Where is
Where
it?
did it go? It's at the bottom.
Still. Why? Is it because it's a number? Let's see. Text area column.
Well, so if you go back to that style or that documentation stuff, that's maybe why they were putting the in the style because it was it has a class on it which is the e-text box.
So how do
I mean,
we
what?
do it? Mhm.
Yeah, so we want to pass it down as a property so we can be very specific. So this is
But for now, just POC. I want to hard code everything just to see how we make it actually scale.
Hmm.
Ideally, I want it to be 100% and it scales with the dialogue. So whatever you're doing, you're typing within. You know what I mean? But also, we don't want it to scale with the text because that means you're gonna go outside of the page if someone is writing, the entire Jane Austen persuasion in there, which is some people love to do that. What are we gonna do? Yeah, Joshua.
There's actually input attributes, so I wonder if the on the deal. So I think if we do the same dictionary thing that we just did,
Let's try. You want
I'll
me to
just
switch?
do the. Well, I just sure if you've got the power, I forget this. Okay, so let me restart my machine or restart the machine. Yeah, restart the whole machine. Restart the server.
That's how we solve the problem. Just restart.
Yeah.
Turn it off and on again.
I found with Visual Studio, you have to restart Windows every time you want to start the. No. Okay, now that works and stuff. So you should see a much larger screen. Because if you get, I don't think you're sharing the screen, or I'm not sharing the screen.
You didn't share it yet.
Oh, I thought you had the power. I thought you could just control my entire.
Nope.
Okay.
I got the power.
Okay, so now, what we did, yeah. So now this is going to be
What
if
is
we
this
inspect this
sorcery
guy.
you did, yeah, Joshua?
I read the docs. That's the problem. Okay, so now it's height 250 pixels, and that's actually being put on the text area. So then if I flip back over to the Visual Studio, so which means I have to share the other screen. Okay, so the what we did is before is we had we had HTML attributes, but we actually needed the input attributes. So it actually gives you the ability to specify the attributes on both the outer container and the input.
Wait. How did you do that? Go ahead. Yep. Go ahead.
So that we did have HTML attributes, but now then there's input attributes. So we were close, but close but no cigar.
It's
So,
also not consistent.
why is it not consistent?
It's not like standardized,
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, sometimes this happens a lot with not just Sync Fusion stuff, but like it used to be that you could pass down like one big style thing and stuff, and now you have to kind of know what the SF text box. It's weird that I have to know that there's an input inside of this guy. It makes sense. It was kind of easy to find and stuff, but you'd think you'd be able to specify that the attributes here and stuff. So I mean, there's kind of a trade-off. So okay, so now we know that this guy's here, and so now we can, if we wanted
See, guys, that's why I love this guy. He just sits there and figures it out. Okay, so let's just make this a $ interpolated string and just let's pass in the parameter in there. What do you think about that?
Yep.
And the
So
parameter, because this can be different kinds of different kinds of input. It doesn't have to always be X, can be EM or whatever. That's why it's a string,
the
right?
single quote for the dollar sign?
No, double quotes still, double quotes. Josh.
This is why you should stay in one language, because Okay.
So and then do a squigglies around the 200px. Yep.
As soon as you said that, I was like, it makes sense. Okay.
Squiggly,
So then we probably
squiggly.
want to do it because we want to specify it as pixels. Is that
No,
kind of
no. Just leave the input for the person using it to determine EM, PX. What are the other measures? PTs, stuff like that.
Okay, sounds good.
Height. There it is. Oh, that's beauty. That's pure beauty right there.
Now,
Okay.
if we really wanted to test this out, we could hard code default that. Do we want to make sure that it's working before we just go ahead and pass the deal? So if we wanted to say this is going to be our
250px. Yep.
Well, let's do it 500 pixels. Let's go big or go home, right?
Whoa,
so 500 pixels.
Whoa. Okay, yeah, Joshua,
okay.
don't forget the semicolon.
Yeah.
This is not JavaScript. Let's go. No, the semicolon after the double quotes. It's like going from styled. This is why it's important to categorize and break things apart. This is so stupid. All right, let's go.
Okay, so we'll share the deal. Okay, so now the input is so large that so that the parameterization is working. So we know that if we pass it in, it'll work. So now we can actually just go ahead and pass that parameter down to our base component. So I will.
Now you just need to write a test that says it's gonna have in there the values that we define, and let's just say for now we're gonna make it to 250 pixels for now.
Okay. So
but I want it to be more elastic, Joshua, like min height, something like that. Anyway, let's just go to 250 and I'll explain that later. So you need a test.
I clicked the wrong button. It's restarting. Okay, now we got it. Okay.
You need to also expose a function in your base component that says set height in there.
Okay. Should we do that before? Yeah. So we don't. So you're saying we don't want to interact with the property directly?
No, actually, Josh, ignore what I just said. Just like have the test just verify that the height on that text box is 250 pixels and take the new line that you put in line 36.
Okay.
Go, yeah, Josh.
But okay. So we'll see what this guy.
Stay where you are. Just define another property. Yeah.
Right.
You see where I said the text area? So move the text area at the very bottom of the dialog. Move it all the way. And just put another line in there, that Control D. And instead of text area, it will be text area dot height should be, and then you define the expected height. Should
be.
Should. And then be. and then type in there expected height. Expected input height. Lowercase e. Are we over 120 yet?
103, 104.
Okay, so define that variable up there as a string, and let's go. Let's go, yeah, Yeshua. And this one is specific, not randomized. Why, Joshua? Because we actually want the dialog to be exactly 250 px, right? So we can't randomize that one. We're literally describing a behavior. All right, make sure you remove the default value that you put on the input before you run your test.
Oh,
Otherwise, it's just gonna pass.
already gone.
See?
Oh, we set it
It
to 500. I set it to a weird value so it wouldn't pass. That was
okay,
intentional. Okay.
perfect. Let's go.
So now it says that the height is 200, should be 250, but it actually is null. So we go ahead and come back over here so we can say,
Nice. Nice, yeah, Joshua, nice.
all right, and we'll ship it to you. Go ahead.
Noise. Let's go here. So you're giving me failing tests? Is that how you
All the
treat
time.
our friendship? Okay. I thought we were brothers. Okay. All right, my friend. So let me run these tests. I mean, you're saying that the test is failing on your side. Sometimes you guys, just so you understand, sometimes some tests will run and succeed on your pair side, but they will fail on your side because there's a flakiness in the test, and that's why it's important to always run the test and make sure. Yep, expected it to be 250. So how am I gonna fix that? This is back to our categorization. You're either passing a component or properties or passing events. So I'm just gonna go here into this component post dialog, and I'm gonna go and say, well, brother here, allowed us to add height, and I'm gonna add in there 250 px. How cool is that, yeah, Joshua? How cool is that? That's great stuff, right?
Yeah, it seems
Okay.
weird that we're pinning it to 250 pixels, but we're pinning the dialog that we're viewing to 250, not the base component. So any
Yep.
dialog can pick a different height. We just
Yep.
know that our designer or the PM said it should only be this big for this specific dialog. So now we know that unless
Now I
someone
just
goes
need to
in,
test it. Hmm.
yeah, monkeys with stuff and everything, we just know that it's always going to be consistent.
Exactly. So if someone tries to change the UI, we can capture, their them playing around. And here's the screen right here, yeah, Joshua. Boom. Makes sense, right? I love it. It's beautiful. I love it. And we can control it, right? And we can type stuff. Hello, Josh is my brother. All right. Should we wrap it for today?
I mean, we can't do too much. I mean, we would set the bar too high, and we would get people's expectations up and everything. But no, we covered like the different style type of components, the kind of three different natures. We kind of covered when and how you would kind of think about the components. We even broke it down on like what kind of a user story would look like. And of course, this has been just about an hour, and of course, this would be Hassan and I. We do this 8 times over, so that we would ship this feature, and we would 8 more things during the day, or 13, depending on however you how crazy you are and stuff. But we would do this incremental like life cycle over and over again. So it looks like we just made an input with height and stuff. But this is the pattern that we'd follow, and just reproduce for all of our features and stuff. But no, I think we are making progress. I think we did cover some ground, and looking forward to the next one.
It's always a pleasure hanging out with you, Josh. I'll talk to you later about making these more frequent, so just in case we miss one, we don't lose the momentum. And it's always important to kind of keep up to date with Blazor, like maybe a couple of times a week. It doesn't have to be once or 3 times, 2 times. Like the OData guys, I do 3 times with them. The Vazar folks, I do it a couple of times. There's, always a project that's running, something for you to think about and consider. Um, yeah, this is really fun. And of course, for the people watching us as usual, I know we compress a lot of knowledge and a lot of things into what we do, but hopefully, in addition to having fun and hanging out with your friends while you're writing code, you're writing test-driven development, but more importantly, you're also trying to build something that's actually useful for the world. You're building decentralized social media platforms. So if you have an enterprise, someone brought this up to me today, Josh said, if you're building an enterprise application anywhere and you want to add the social media plugin to it, this Ruffle project can be the plug and play, kind of thing into your system. And as usual, for the people watching us, I hope you found this useful. I hope you found this something that is of any value to you. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or compliments from Mr. Josh McCall here, please feel free to drop a comment in the comment section. And what, Josh? Don't forget to what? What do you think?
Spam something like
Don't forget to
something, comment, spam,
spam, to hit there's
subscribe.
buttons. There's
I don't know.
buttons
Yeah,
like
hit all the buttons. We'll see what happens.
just try click all the buttons and see. Thank you guys. I'll see you in another video. Take care.